Hello, and thank you for joining us. Can you believe that most people say they're unhappy with their career progression? Last year, the Pew Research Center conducted a survey of more than 6,000 people, and 63% of them say they left their previous employer because there was no advancement opportunities. Many job seekers and workers believe that employers should provide career advancement opportunities and invest in their workers' careers. Now, what's wrong with this idea that employers should be responsible for their employees' careers? Maybe 25 years ago when employers trained and groomed workers for the next level, but you'd be pretty hard pressed to find that nowadays. I'm here to tell you that if you want to get to where you want to go in your career, you'll need to make your own pathway. And to do this, you'll need to learn to set smarter career goals. Welcome, everyone, to this week's Tuesday Talk on how to set smarter career goals. I'm Michael Robinson, the career coach here at Easter Seals Veteran Staffing Network, VSN for short. I'll be your host and presenter. During this presentation, I'll share with you some methods to plan the next steps in your career. But before I go any further, I'd like to take a moment to cover some housekeeping items. This webinar will last approximately 45 minutes with a live 15-minute Q&A session at the end. If you have a question before then, just type them into the chat box. I'll break periodically to address them if I see a lot being chatted. Lastly, let us know how we're doing by filling out the survey at the conclusion of today's session. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a retired Marine with the majority of my post-military career in HR. I've held positions as a recruiter, hiring manager, and career counselor. I worked as an employment facilitator for the Transition Assistance Program, also known as TAP, in my previous position, helping military members move into the civilian workforce. During that time, I taught more than 100 workshops to over 2,000 transitioning service members. I recently joined the VSN last October, and now I have an opportunity to share with you what I've learned on my career journey. Now, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the VSN to you. The VSN staff understands the employment challenges that veterans and military spouses face because we too are veterans and military spouses. We've matched over 2,700 qualified candidates with employers to fill temporary to permanent, contract, and direct hire positions. The fees from these placements are then reinvested into the coaching services, allowing the VSN to have coached more than 12,000 veterans, wounded warriors, and military spouses. This leads me to where I fit in. Our career coaching program isn't just about landing people new jobs. It's about helping people discover what they need in work to be truly happy and contribute meaningfully so that hopefully they're not looking for work for a very, very, very long time. Our process is to help people gain clarity on their career by understanding the core aspects of the employment process, what you see here on the slide. Then they can take control of their job search and reach their goals. Let's discuss how to do this. First, we'll need to define what a career goal is. A career goal is an action plan to help us achieve our professional ambitions. By setting goals, we create a roadmap of where we're heading and a route to get there. It guides us in the selection of jobs that will hopefully allow us to earn more and grow professionally. The more effectively we plan, the better the chances of us achieving what we aim to. As we progress in our careers, our goals will change too, and we'll need to adapt our goals to those needs. Sadly though, some goals are achieved while others aren't, and it's important to understand why. Think about the idea of the New Year's resolution. Many people don't achieve those. That's because they're made half-heartedly, without any planning, and in part, people just don't follow the basic goal-setting principles, which I'm going to cover now. The goal setting principles involve these 5 core areas you see here. Clarity means knowing what you want and being clear and concise about how to achieve it. That will eliminate the confusion that normally occurs when goals are set more generically. Goals should be challenging yet realistic and attainable, inspiring us to push forward. Unattainable goals, well, they'll only discourage us. Goals that are too easy, well, they're going to bore us. More importantly, we'll need to be committed to seeing the goals through to completion. We'll be confronted by many issues beyond our control, including competition and personal factors. But we'll need to meet these challenges head on with a plan of attack. It's important to get feedback, whether that's through metrics, data, timelines, or feedback from others. This allows us to adjust our expectations and our plan of action going forward. Be careful. Be careful not to add too much complexity to your goals. If necessary, break the goals down into smaller sub-goals to decrease the difficulty. Following these basic principles will lead to greater benefits, which is next in our discussion. Research has shown that goal setting has several benefits. Even if you don't achieve all of your goals, just having them can enrich our lives in many ways. Let's talk about why. Goal planning gives us direction by providing a target to work towards, and it directs our efforts to where we ultimately want to be. It allows us to focus on what's important by understanding our priorities and what we truly want to achieve. Knowing this puts us in a much better position to make clear decisions that will affect our path, giving us more control over our future. With goals, you can decide where you're going and how you want to get there. What we do or fail to do directly impacts that outcome. When goals are achieved, it increases our happiness and our satisfaction, helping us become more productive. Now, we've talked about the benefits. I'd like to move into how valuable this process is to our emotional and psychological well-being too. When we reach our goals, we feel accomplished. That feeling fuels our desire and motivates us to achieve even more. This increases our self-esteem and confidence that will enable us to overcome many obstacles and improve our sense of autonomy. This will challenge us, but at the same time leave us feeling energized with a sense of satisfaction. That will help us appreciate our capabilities and gives us an idea of our full potential. The goal setting process can help us identify our purpose in life too. By taking time to reflect on who we are and what we want to accomplish throughout our lives, we may discover our purpose. Centering our goals on that purpose allows us to feel that what we do is meaningful, leading to more contributions. Lastly, having a structured process increases our chances of successfully reaching the goal. Research suggests that merely writing our goals down increases our chances of meeting that goal by over 30%. Every successful step toward your short and long-term goals builds confidence and gives you a sense of personal pride. The more you achieve, the better you feel about yourself. As for short and long-term goals, let's discuss them now. Here you see some common career goals. Most people aspire to grow professionally because they see it as the best way to become more fulfilled and improve the standard of living. Here are a couple of ways to do that. Changing jobs, improving your communication skills, increasing professional knowledge and training are all goals that can be accomplished in most cases within a year's time frame. These can be used as stepping stones to bigger goals. For instance, all the short-term goals can lead to a midterm goal, say to switch careers in 3 to 5 years. And in turn, that midterm goal might be used to fulfill a long-term goal, maybe achieving a leadership role in your organization. That could take upwards up to a decade to do, but setting short and long-term goals can help you make that possible. Thus, career goals should reflect your professional vision and what you want to accomplish. Additionally, you must consider the time frame that it's going to take for you to reach that goal. Let's turn our attention now to what skills are needed in the goal setting process. The skills required for successful goal setting aren't difficult to acquire. It basically boils down to practicing good habits. These skills are easily applied. No need to invest large sums of money because we have these skills already. Applying them is all we need to do. For example, if you've been in the military at any point in time, you've done this. Planning, self-motivation, self-regulation, time management, commitment, focus. Military spouses are experts in these areas. Often we get caught up in what's called analysis paralysis. We let questions and doubts paralyze us. We feel, well, we can't start our goal until we have all the answers to every what-if scenario. However, no matter how long or how hard you prepare, you will never have all the answers. Additionally, most people make their decisions and or base their answers to their questions on where they are now rather than on where they want to go or who they want to be. Always base your decisions and answers to your questions on the view of the future, not a view of the current situation. Your situation will change because of the decisions you make today, and that will dictate the success of your journey. So move forward toward your goal knowing that you'll never have all the answers. At this point, we've talked about the 5 principles, the benefits, the value, and skills of goal setting. I'd like to move us to how to set career goals. First, we want to analyze all aspects of the goal. I'm going to introduce you to the personal SWOT analysis. It's a great tool to assess our plan and our careers. Then I'll cover the SMARTer Goal Framework, which is a structured approach to goal setting used to simplify and manage goals to increase the likelihood of success. Lastly, we'll talk about formulating a goal statement for interviews and networking situations. But before we dive into these topics, we'll need to think about some factors that might need some careful consideration. Career goal considerations will be different for everyone, and we'll all prioritize them according to what our individual situations are. But at the core will be the labor market. We'll want to assess if our career goal we're pursuing is going to grow, and will it be in demand? Will it meet our salary requirements? The last thing you want to do is launch head-on into a new career, and 3 to 5 years later, you're doing this all over again because you selected a career that isn't going to sustain your livelihood. Next is education and training, as well as skills. They all go hand in hand. Think about this. Is what you have going to maximize your earning potential and your opportunities for career advancement? If not, what can you do to change that? What about, is it going to support your work style, values, and interests? These require research to answer. Networking and informal interviews will be helpful, but you'll need to do some real digging into these topics in order to understand whether or not this is going to be helpful to you. Lastly, location. I talk to many people who want to work from home and make this their career goal. Again, talking to others and doing your research will help in understanding that unique environment. If a hybrid or on-site work is required, how does that affect your location? How does that affect your commuter requirements? Once we've assessed all these factors and have a better understanding of our needs, we can now start looking toward our SWOT analysis. And SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you're familiar with the SWOT acronym, you're probably familiar with it in terms of how businesses use it to strategically plan for the future. We can do the same. We can use the personal SWOT analysis to create an actionable career strategy. Conducting a personal SWOT analysis can help us plan our next career move, prepare for interviews, and stand out in our job search. The SWOT analysis is typically more recognizable in a 4-block square. The first two sections, strengths and weaknesses, are considered internal factors. They're specific to you as an individual, such as your personality, your skills, experiences, qualifications, and character traits. The last two sections, opportunities and threats, examine the external factors that may impact your careers, such as industry trends, developments in new technology, and changes in the world of work. By examining each of these sections thoroughly, we'll gain a clearer understanding of the factors, both internal and external, as well as the positive and negatives that can impact our career. Once completed, your SWOT analysis can help you formulate a plan to strategically manage your career by using your strengths to pursue opportunities while mitigating weaknesses and threats. Now that I've given you an overview of the personal SWOT analysis, let's take a deeper dive into this further, starting with the strengths. The first step is to list your strengths. Knowing these will help you to be more confident in your career change, interview, or when you're looking for a job or promotion. Start with what you're naturally good at. We are more likely to succeed in our career if we use our talents to the fullest ability. Think about what advantages you have over others. For example, skills, experience, certifications, or education. Take into consideration that it's usually not just one of these that will make you stand out from others, but a combination. For instance, if you're a great mechanic at work and the people around you are also great mechanics, then it's not likely that that'll be your strength. It's a necessity where you work. Industry connections are vital too. Think about who you know that can help you in your professional growth. What achievements are you most proud of, and can those demonstrate your value? Consider this from the point of others as well, those people around you. Don't be modest or shy. Be as objective as you possibly can. Knowing and using your strengths can make you happier and more fulfilled at what you do. And if you still have any questions or difficulties in identifying your strengths, write down a list of your characteristics. Some of these will hopefully be your strengths. After we finish with our strengths, we'll want to outline our weaknesses. Again, consider this from a personal or internal and a external or others perspective. Ask yourself, do coworkers consistently outperform me in key areas? Be realistic. It's because you need to face any unpleasant truths as soon as possible. What are your negative work habits? For example, are you often late? Are you disorganized? Are you overly negative or critical with others? List the tasks that you usually avoid because you don't feel confident in doing them. A fear of public speaking would be a major weakness if you have to conduct meetings regularly. Are you completely confident in your education and skills and training? If not, where are your weaknesses at? Back to your industry connections. Too often people view networking as something that is, well, it's not for them, or they don't see themselves as doing it. They argue that networking is not as important as people make it out to be. However, there's no denying that the power of a strong professional network can have over your career success. When it's done well and done right, networking will not only help you land a job faster, but it could also give you the competitive edge throughout every stage of your career. Once we've identified our strengths and weaknesses, we'll want to assess our opportunities to find areas to maximize our strengths and minimize our weaknesses. When done correctly, this section may help us find surprising career opportunities we otherwise may not have considered or thought of. Things to consider: are industry trends in your role or industry changing in ways that could help you in your career? What about opportunities for career growth? Do they exist in your current position or industry? Can new technology impact your job or help your advancement? Are there other areas in your industry or job where education, skills, and your experience are in demand? In what ways can you or your professional connections help you? It's great if an opportunity matches your strengths, but sometimes great opportunities arise in areas that don't match your skill set. Do consider the pros and cons before disregarding them. Now we have to evaluate threats to our goal success. At this point, most people overlook or fail to acknowledge personal traits that might be counterproductive behavior. That can range from being a gossiper to those who don't do anything beyond their job description. Understanding yourself and the personality you present to others is vital. Also, think about your competitors. Are they better qualified? What are they doing that you're not? You'll need to also consider the economic marketplace too. Think about this. Can you afford to take a reduction in salary to pursue your career goal? Also, because you don't have influence over employers' preferences, so does that present an obstacle for you as well? What about new technology? Does that require you to obtain additional training and certifications that might be challenging because of your personal or professional circumstances? Identifying these things now will help you create a plan that mitigates risk and prepares for the possible future events. So you're probably wondering how this might all look when it's finished. Well, here's an example. Please take a moment to look over this scenario. Here you can see Paul wants to make a career change from hospitality to digital marketing. He has a fairly universal technical degree and a strong interest in the pathway he's looking to move into. Paul has assessed his goal factors and conducted his research and is ready to put together his SWOT analysis. Here, Paul developed his SWOT to assess his internal and external factors. Placing the SWOT in the 4-grid square helps visualize the information. Now, we'll need to evaluate these results, and there's two popular methods: matching and converting. Means connecting two of the categories to determine a course of action. For example, matching strengths and opportunities show where you could be aggressive and take action. In this instance, you can see here where search optimization is a strength, and he's identified that search engine optimization as a possible opportunity. So this shows where action can be taken. Converting is turning negatives into positives by converting your weaknesses into strengths or your threats into opportunities. In this instance, we have weaknesses and we have threats. If looking at this, qualifications and the threats of others being more qualified lets Paul know that this is an area that he can work on. If he gains qualifications, say through certification or education, well, he might be able to mitigate those threats where others are more qualified. Well, there you have it. That is a SWOT analysis. Now, what are some good times to do SWOT analysis? Anytime is a good time to do a SWOT analysis, but there's a few specific instances where it can be beneficial to you. Looking for a new job, regardless of the role or industry, one of the first things they're going to ask you in an interview is, tell us a little bit about yourself. Without directly saying it, what they want to know is, what do you perceive your strengths as? Your SWOT analysis can help you focus on your strengths and talk more about them. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the webinar. Also, when applying for a promotion, it helps you assess yourself and against others. We do this all the time, whether we like to admit it or not. We always are comparing ourselves to others around us. And then, of course, before a career switch, it's going to help you figure out whether your skills match the opportunity. I'd like to move now to the Smarter Goals framework. Many of you may be familiar with the SMART acronym, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. SMART goals provide a framework for setting goals at work and in your life. Goals that meet the SMART criteria are generally easier to complete, measure, explain to managers, teammates, and prospective employers. Starting with specific, your goal should be clear and concise. Otherwise, you won't be able to focus your efforts or feel truly motivated to achieve it. Next, it needs to be measurable. It's important to track your progress. Assessing progress helps you to stay focused and meet your deadlines as you get closer to achieving your goal. Then it needs to be achievable. These need to be realistic and attainable to be successful. In other words, it should stretch your abilities but remain possible. Relevant. This step is about ensuring that your goal matters to you and that it also aligns with other relevant goals. And then lastly, timely. Every goal needs a target date, a deadline to focus on, and sometimes something to work towards. This part of the SMART goal criteria helps you prevent everyday tasks from taking priority or, mission creep on your long-term goals. So to make a SMART goal smarter, we'll just add an ER. The sixth aspect of the Smarter Goal framework is evaluating. This is where we move beyond goal characteristics and into goal interaction. Evaluation involves looking back and reflecting on past performance, learning what is going well and what's not. Set up a regular progression evaluation point every week. Take time to look back at your goals and calibrate accordingly. Then the final aspect of the Smarter Goal is that the goal can be revised. Notice that I said can be, not should be. If the goals are SMART and you're evaluating them regularly, then you may not have to revise anything. But goals aren't perfect, and neither are situations. Stuff comes up, a life event, a change in the industry, downsizing in our company. A lot can happen. So you shouldn't act as though your goals are 100% set in stone. Let's cover some important aspects of establishing our smarter goal. Keeping the 5 principles of goal setting in mind and applying the SWOT analysis to the smarter goal framework will provide a clearer picture of our situation. So, for every letter in the acronym, you'll need to ask yourself some questions. The S, try to answer the 5 Ws: who, what, when, where, and why. Ask yourself this: is this concise, significant, sensible, and simple? The M answers how. How is tied back to the feedback loop we mentioned earlier in the 5 principles, defining how the goal will be tracked. The A, is the goal realistic and obtainable under the current situation, and can it be successful considering your constraints? The R is about ensuring that your goal matters to you and aligns to other relevant goals you may be wanting to achieve. The T is the timeline. When will the goal be accomplished? Lastly, the E and R stages go hand in hand. As you evaluate the goal in general, you'll need to evaluate whether the goal should be revised. Now that we've covered the smarter goal framework, let's put it into a goal statement. Let's take a moment to reflect back on Paul's scenario. Paul uses the smarter goal framework to put together a short career goal statement. He starts with saying exactly what he wants to achieve, which is the specific. Next, he connects this goal to his overall vision. Then assesses if the goal is doable by ensuring it's realistic, which is the achievable, and sets a deadline so it can be timely. Following that, he decides on a number or another metric that will provide him feedback to measure his progress. That's measurable. As well as determine when he'll check in on his goal to evaluate it. And then lastly, Paul stays flexible with the goal in case he needs to change it, which is the revision. That's fairly simplified, yet it'll provide you with an example of how a smarter goal method can help you develop a clearer and concise goal statement you can work towards. Which leads me to why you should set smarter career goals. Using the smarter goal framework sets boundaries and defines the steps to take, resources necessary to get us there, and the milestones that indicate the progress along the way. It also provides a time frame for completion. You'll know what you must accomplish and can plan milestones throughout the period to complete the goal over time and on time. It can also help us during the interview. The interviewer might ask us, "What's your career goals?" Alternatively, you might get a similar question such as, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Or, "What are your goals for the next 5 to 10 years?" Let's take a look at how we could quite possibly answer those questions. Some might wonder what the interviewer wants to know when they ask that question. Interviewers want to know whether or not you plan to stay with the company for a while if they hire you, or if you're likely to leave at the first opportunity. Asking future-focused questions during interviews is fairly common. For employers, this tactic helps reveal if you have a long-term vision or plan. It might be difficult to think about the future during the interview, so it's good to plan for questions like these. Keep in mind that there are plenty of ways to answer it. Here's an example of how to frame a response. Start with the short term Then move to the long term. You probably have a good sense of your short-term goal, such as getting the job with the employer, the one that you're currently interviewing with. Start by describing these goals and then move to the long-term plan. Explain the actions you'll take. Just listing the goals is not going to make for a very strong answer. You want to be brief and explain the steps that you'll take to achieve them. For example, if you want to take on a management role, describe the steps you will take or have taken to become a manager. You'll want to focus on the employer by answering the question with the employer in mind. If your goals don't mesh with that employer's vision or future, it's better to keep your goals to yourself. Even though the question is about you, you want to convey that you won't abandon the employer anytime soon. Lastly, take time to practice. Practicing your answers to questions about your career plan or your goals out loud helps you be more comfortable during the interview. Before we wrap things up, I want to cover the common mistakes made when setting goals and leave you with ways to avoid them. At the top of the list of mistakes most people make when setting goals is not knowing the why. Your why should be very personal to you. It's the reason specifically you wish to accomplish that goal. Take time to understand the why. Another problem is setting goals that are not within your control. Smarter goals should be within your control. For example, if you want to get a raise at work, you can control some factors, such as hitting your numbers or communicating with your manager, but you can't control other factors such as the budget or your manager's assessment of your abilities. You can't control your professional industry, but you can control how many resumes you send out. You can control how many networking events you attend. So set goals around the factors of which you have influence. Then there's over-reliance on motivation. To be successful, you have to maintain consistency. Motivation isn't reliable, it's fleeting. It comes and it goes, and it does so rather quickly. If you only act when you're motivated, then you'll fall behind with very little progress. Reaching goals is dependent on your habits. That's because they are ultimately what help or hinder you from reaching your goal. When setting your goals, it's important to identify what habits you are getting in your way, what habits are helping you, and then, of course, what habits you want to develop. Lastly, avoid setting too many goals. How many goals do you work towards at once? In my experience, most people set 3 to 5 work goals and then 3 to 5 personal or life goals. And that's too many. The problem with that is that you have so many goals, you end up multitasking. Then your time and attention ends up being pulled in so many directions, you can't effectively achieve all your goals. Remember, you can set more goals after you achieve the ones you're currently working on. So, what are some things you can do today to plan your career goal? What you can do today, download the planning tool I'm putting into the chat. Use the sheet to identify the strengths you possess, the weaknesses that limit you, the opportunities that exist for you to take advantage of, and any possible threats against which you need to make a plan. Seek feedback from others. We tend to be a bit biased towards ourselves. Therefore, when making a personal SWOT analysis diagram, you'll need to consult others that you trust and you know very well. You may have to hand them a completed matrix, but ask them to provide honest feedback. This will help you refine your final copy into a more inclusive and concrete SWOT analysis. After the SWOT analysis, go to the Smarter Goals worksheet. When filling out the Smarter Goal worksheet, start with a short-term goal. Keep the 5 principles of goal setting in mind. You want it to be meaningful, clearly defined, and within your capabilities to achieve, with a feedback system that'll let you know how you're progressing so you can revise the goal if needed. Remember, Just merely writing down your goal improves your chances of reaching it quite a bit. So let's go ahead and wrap up the presentation by going over some key takeaways. Here are some key takeaways that we can walk away from today's session with. Always keep in mind the 5 principles of goal setting. These principles guide our goals in providing us clarity in what we want to achieve. Use the personal SWOT analysis to get a complete picture of what we have to offer and what challenges we'll face in completing our goal. And then lastly, use the Smarter Goals framework to direct our efforts in a structured way, and this will help us complete our goals. Now we'll move on to the question and answer period. Thank you all for your time and your attention. If you have any questions, please reach out and connect with me. Here's my contact information, and I will be happy to answer any other questions you might have. And I look forward to seeing you in our next Tuesday talk. Farewell, please be safe, and good luck.